Courageous, a No Fear Success Guide for Teen Girls. So as we all know, Women's History Month is a celebration of women's contribution to history, culture, and society in general. And it has been in the United States, at least it has been observed since 1987. So Women's History Month is full of trailblazers in the fight for equality in the United States and around the world. But we still have a long way to go. For example, women still on average are paid less than men doing the same job, and they're underrepresented in positions of leadership. Furthermore, teenage girls receive mixed messages from family, peers, and media, causing them to feel pressure to conform to an ideal body image. And to put that into numbers, 78% of girls are unhappy with their bodies by age 17. That causes them to engage in risky behaviors due to poor body image, including substance use, diets, using food substitutes or diet pills, or vomiting and other problematic behaviors. The teen years are already difficult without these gender-based challenges. The intersectionality of being a person of color and a girl further adds to these challenges. 1/3 of the 18.5 million girls between the ages of 10 and 18 in the United States are Black, Hispanic, Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, Eskimo, and they remain virtually invisible in the psychological literature on adolescent girl development. Just as the notion that males and females differ in their development towards self-definition has become accepted, professionals and others who work with adolescent girls must move toward a fuller recognition of the contribution of race, ethnicity, culture, class, sexual orientation to development in general and to the understanding of adolescence. So today we will hear from amazing Wyjuana Montgomery, how to better help and how to best connect with these young women and be the support system that they need. Before we start our discussion with Wyjuana, I would like to briefly introduce Wyjuana. So Wyjuana Montgomery is a best-selling author and speaker. She's a native of Seattle, Washington, who relocated to Oklahoma City in 2008 to help launch the Community Relations Department for the Oklahoma City Thunder NBA basketball team. Utilizing her community relations background and passion for empowering her community, Wyjuana founded Reach Forward Foundation, a 501c3 organization mentoring youth in grades 6 to 12. Wyjuana Speaks is the platform Mrs. Montgomery uses to promote her book and speak across the country and abroad. As part of this platform, she hosts the annual No Fear Ladies Conference, which brings together women and teen girls from all walks of life and all around the country to empower them to reach forward with no fear. Wyjuana is also a wife of 21 years with 3 children and her niece and 3 grandchildren and 2 dogs. So basically, Wyjuana is the epitome of what we want to highlight during the National Women History Month. So thank you, Wyjuana, for joining us. And this was a brief introduction. Is there anything that you would like to add to the introduction? Something you would like to mention?
Actually, you captured it well. You captured it well. Just very involved in the community and family.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. We feel really privileged to talk to you today. And that's the first question that I have for you is, You have been formally and informally mentoring teen girls on a variety of topics for multiple years. Can you tell us why is this important to you?
First of all, as an adult woman, I was a girl and I was a teenager before. It's been a while, but I was. And I know in my own life how important it was to have a variety of mentors and other people you could trust as a sounding board beyond, just your own parents, because sometimes you can talk to them, sometimes you can't, sometimes their perspective is a little bit, it's just one-sided one way, and you need someone else who will also give you sound advice. And I noticed as a young adult that girls naturally liked me. Teenage girls were drawn to me. So it just sort of fell in my lap and I went with it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, that you were a teenager. We were all teenage girls at some point. And we kind of know what are the needs, but we are still having that understanding that there might be a generation gap. So just keeping that in mind, that was great. Um, so a survey administered to more than 1,000 or 1,419 students, to be specific, indicated that younger students were generally more positive about school and future adult life roles than older students. So major gender differences were found favoring females and
Vinasha,
adolescents.
okay, go. You were frozen for a second for me. So you said major differences were found between genders. That's the last thing I heard.
So through this survey, they found major gender differences that favoring females for one field and males for another field, like females in English and language and arts, whereas men or male students, they were more like science and maths and engineering and STEM fields. So I guess my question for you is, how can adolescent girls be encouraged to resist traditional gender roles expectations in considering their academic pursuit in future careers, and not be boxed into these gender specific roles, like you have to, if you're a girl, you have to study arts or become a teacher. If you're a man, you can't become a nurse or a teacher, you have to become an engineer or like some field in the STEM fields.
I think to answer how can girls come outside of the box, we actually have to go a step back. And I think a lot of that has to do with how you are nurtured. If you look at the gift selection, for example, that most family members and friends, what do they buy the little girl? She gets Barbies and different dolls and Cabbage Patch Kids and cooking sets. It's rare for someone to choose to buy their son the cooking set. He gets the Legos and the cars. So I feel like those gender roles are shaped based on what family members are doing when they're very young. So I intentionally would buy my daughter those kinds of things, the little toys with the circuit board, and you're trying to figure out how to connect the wires, because if you don't expose them, then that it's the lack of exposure that leads them to think that I have to go a certain way. And then back home in Seattle, I once worked for Seattle Girls School, which was a 5 through 8 independent school, and they chose to be all girls intentionally because it's that 5th through 8th grade area where girls start to kind of step away and get shy in math class, in science class. They stop raising their hand because of the changes they're going through developmentally. They start to lack self-confidence at the same time that they're also noticing attraction to boys. So they want to impress him or just be, oh, I'm just going to be cute and I'm not going to raise my hand. And so they felt if we have a school that's only girls, we can also eliminate that kind of distraction, that dynamic that plays out in the classroom. So I really think in order for the girl to get out of the box, it's actually not on the girl, it's on whoever is raising her to start with enough exposure in the first place and those conversations. Otherwise, they're not a thought in her mind unless she just naturally really enjoys math or science. And we all know that you don't have to be a math or science genius to go into a STEM career, but there needs to be something that you like about it. So I think it's the exposure. We as adults need to do a better job of that. So,
Mhm.
and they probably don't see, a lot of times you don't get a woman as a math or science teacher either. So you're not even seeing the role model who looks like you in the classroom. So that kind of hinders that effort.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, it's not the girl's job. It's the adults, the caregivers, the teacher, and people, even people who give gifts, if they're gender neutral and not like girls get only pink Barbie doll and guys get like big cars that
Right.
they play with. So it's like a combination of everyone helping this girl realize her potential. It's not on her shoulders when she's like in seventh or eighth grade.
Right. Absolutely. And she's
Along the
going to made a decision by then.
yeah,
Yeah.
so along the same lines, uh, what are the roles that of the educators, caregivers, psychologists, healthcare system, and policymakers in providing an environment that enriches the strength adolescent girls bring to our society? Like, it's what we talk about, but what are specific roles that they play, these different entities?
One thing that comes to mind that I feel has direct impact, teachers or any educators, the daycare provider all the way through, high school and college. The literature that you're reading and the projects that you're doing and the field trips that you're having, are you seeing women in positions of power and in non-traditional roles when you do those things? Are you studying them? Are you reading about them? Are you watching the interviews? If you're showing documentaries in the classroom, are you seeing documentaries with women who are pioneering in certain areas? So I feel like if educators, and I know there's a lot of pressure on them, you have to teach this certain thing. We only have this much time to do it. Oh, and by the way, if it's not going to be on the test, we don't have time for that. So there's a lot of pressure already, but it's kind of like they really have to be intentional about their curriculum. And then as far as policy in, public policy and things in the health field and all of that, when you're doing different medical studies and different environments, you have to make sure that women and girls are involved in those things. And then from a policy perspective, it's kind of like you have to take a look at the programs that you're offering for recruitment in certain areas. Are you reaching girls and women, or are you just reaching boys and men when you do those things? So there's a lot of places where folks who are responsible for various programming can be more intentional and strategic about outreach and things like that to connect the dots for girls and women. So yeah, that's how I think they can do it. Just being more intentional and
Yeah,
strategic. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Sorry if I froze for a second.
Yeah.
um, and I think that's very true that there's these different entities that play a role in helping a teenage girl to reach her full potential. How can adolescent girls themselves be prepared for the roles they will play in the future and how they influence the world around them? Is there something they can do, they should consider?
Absolutely. It's funny. Every Monday night, I do a Facebook Live called Monday Night Chats for Moms and Mentors of
Yeah.
Teen Girls. And it's interesting. This week, I chose as my topic how to help her see the big picture.
Mhm.
And what you just asked is really a part of her seeing the big picture. So, for context, right now, my two girls, my niece and my daughter, are both 14. It's almost like having twins, they're only 4 months apart. So, if you believe in the power of prayer, pray for me. I have two 14-year-old girls who are freshmen in high school. And then my son turns 19 on Monday, and he's a freshman in college. And I'm always reminding the girls, now is the time to, you know, take the time to take different electives in school, for example. If you don't know what you're interested in, like I have, my daughter is almost 100% sure that she wants to teach children with moderate to severe special needs. Well, how does she know that? Because way back in elementary school, as young as second and third grade, she took an interest in being a buddy to the students in her school with special needs and was even selected to be a coach for the Special Olympics team at her elementary school. And she took the class in the junior high, middle school, where you get to work with the students with special needs. And so you have some that kind of know that early. Knowing that, we make sure to continue to put opportunities in front of her to let her continue to test that skill set in that environment. The other one, not quite sure yet, kind of broadly, I think I want to work with the elderly in a healthcare setting. So my next step is, okay, once we get past COVID a bit, let's go see if you can volunteer at the nursing home or something like that. So what girls can do is, when they're choosing their classes or places to volunteer, pick places that are connected to where you think you have an interest. And that way you're being exposed and you think, yes, I'm spot on. This is great. That's what I want to do. Or, oh my gosh, I thought that would be cool, but I really don't want to do that. So it's important for them to also take advantage of opportunities where they can get that exposure and that skill set, meet the right people. We have to start teaching them about networking as well. Meet the right people, job shadow, have an exploratory interview of your mom or dad's friend or your grandma's friend that does something, you don't know quite what it is, but it sounds cool. Sit down and talk to them, record it so you can play it later. So that's the part they can, is really guide their own learning as much as they can in school. And then with community engagement, they can pick and choose activities to help them explore themselves a bit better.
So it's like seeing the kind of having them explore the bigger picture, whether they know what they want to do and how they're going to contribute to the society, or they don't know. If you know, look for more opportunities and just explore that further. If you don't know, explore different things to figure out what it is that you actually want. So that's really good. And along the lines of community development and developing relationships, and also what we have talked about, the importance of having strong mentors, especially right. Female mentors. Research has also shown that strong female mentors who can create a healthy relationship with teenage girls and teach the importance of the self-love, determination, and body acceptance, among other things, is very important for young women. So since that it's very important, how can teenage girls find these strong mentors and get connected with them is the real question.
There's kind of more than one way. My first ever mentee was a work thing. When I worked at Seattle Girls School, they chose to give every incoming fifth grader a mentor. So she was 10 years old. I am still in contact with Jamila. She just graduated from Meharry Medical School. She's a doctor, has her own child now. So there's formal things like that. You're in a school or some type of community program, or your place of worship, if you follow a faith path that has that. And then the other way is, I always tell young people, pay attention to those adults that really have a healthy interest in you. Mm-hmm. Like that teacher that's always riding your back. They want to make sure your work is turned in on time. They want to make sure you're doing their best. Or the neighbor who always, is willing to give you some money to mow the lawn, or they have you babysit. Those people can be so key in your life. That's another way. Just take a look at your own circle. And some of my first mentee here in Oklahoma started off babysitting my children. So of course, if you're babysitting my children, then I'm seeing you on a pretty regular basis. We're having conversation. I'm learning more about you. You're learning more about me. And then also my husband was training her in basketball. So it was a mutually beneficial connection. She was babysitting for us. We're paying her and things like that. And so she sort of just fell into my lap as a mentee because of proximity. And we continued to build. And this, I can't believe it, this is her senior year of college. She just had her senior game at basketball in Missouri. And so teenage girls can seek it out by really noticing those folks in your circle who really have an interest in you. And if you feel comfortable talking to them and you feel like you can be open and honest, and there's a natural connection there that's not forced, that may be a natural mentor for you. And you can even ask them, hey, do you mind being my mentor? I have another one I was public speaking, and she was in the class and asked me to be her mentor afterwards. So that they can just pay attention to who's around and just ask. just ask.
That's really great. Kind of coming to the situation that we're in right now, the pandemic and COVID-19, and just 2020 in general has had an impact on young adults. They may not have been exposed to it, like have experienced COVID-19 directly, but almost all have been exposed to the stress of school changes, relationship disruption, income loss, or racial inequality, and many have even faced even greater challenges because of the pandemic. Do you have any advice or words of encouragement for youth going through this historical moment right now?
One piece of advice I would say, this is a real world, real life lesson if you've ever had one. And it's you are living and breathing it every day about the importance of resiliency. And even if it wasn't the pandemic, sometimes life, it just, it doesn't bring all that we would desire, or we think things aren't happening fast enough. And so I try to encourage them by reminding them that, hey, you have to take the best. There's actually some good things I found about it. When we were on like almost total lockdown, guess what? It was an excuse to spend more time with your family, play some games together, have movie night, where normally everyone would be running around a different direction and doing their own thing. It's actually a chance to bond, and have more conversation that maybe you would have liked to have, but you were too busy all the time. So my word of encouragement is that take advantage of it. What can you do? My daughter discovered that she can write poetry. She was just bored one day and started writing about something that had happened, and has since shared it in a spoken word event. So instead of focusing on all of the things that are different now, or you feel like you don't have, focus on what you do have and what you still can do. And also there's other ways to connect. They're on social media, but that's not the same thing as having a genuine, authentic connection. Use your FaceTime and all of those things to connect with, your good friend or your grandmother, things like that. And as far as encouragement, try to find the things that you still enjoy. Like, we can still go out and have a nice walk in the sunshine, ride your bike, listen to music, dance, make a TikTok video, all of those different things. So just encouraging them to realize that this too shall pass. It's very strange. It's very odd. It literally brought the entire world to a screeching halt at one point, but it will pass. We are literally going to be talking about this like it's going to be history one day. We're going to be older, and they'll be telling their grandchildren about they were alive when the COVID-19 came, or the coronavirus, or whatever they call it, and how everything shut down. And it's going to almost be unbelievable, but they're going to be here talking about it, and it's going to be history because they will have moved on and gone past it. So I just encourage them to try to focus more on what they have and what they can still do and what they can learn in the midst of this, instead of the things that have been kind of taken away.
I think that's a really good point, to kind of look at the brighter side. And I always think about that how would it look like if we had this pandemic a few decades from now? Like right now we have the internet and different platforms to connect and still continue our studies or work. But if it was a few decades ago, I don't know how, like, the challenges would have been greater. So it's always looking at the brighter side and taking advantage of that. For some of my friends that I've talked to, they have really enjoyed the time that's given them because of the pandemic, because they're, as you said, they have time to reflect and really realize what they need as a person, rather than be running around and being busy all the time. So it could be a good opportunity for a lot of them.
Absolutely.
So before we ask Wyjuana to share with us how the audience can get in touch with you, the website, social media handles, etc., I would like to tell the audience on Zoom platform and also on Facebook, if you have any questions for Wyjuana or just any questions in general, feel free to send us through here in Zoom, or a comment on Facebook live stream. So Wyjuana, how can our audience get in touch with you?
So a couple of very easy ways. I have a website. It is wyjuana.com. And I don't know if you all want me to type it in or someone else will, but it's wyjuana.com. My first name is unique enough not to use my last name. And then if you want to learn more about my mentorship program, we're doing things a bit differently because of the pandemic, but we are still finding innovative ways to engage our families. It has its own website, but the URL is a little bit long. So the easiest way to find out about Reach Forward Foundation, if you go to wyjuana.com and scroll towards the bottom, there's actually a group photo of some of the mentees. If you click the photo, it goes to the Reach Forward website. And then there's plenty of information, pictures, and a big old join us button. I'm also on Facebook under my regular name, Wyjuana Montgomery. I also have a No Fear Ladies Conference Facebook page. There is a Reach Forward Foundation Facebook page. And then I'm also on Twitter and Instagram as well. So I'll always at Wyjuana. Twitter is at Wyjuana M and Instagram is at Wyjuana. So definitely very, very searchable and findable.
Thank you, Wyjuana. We have a question from Facebook. Do you have any recommendations for good books for girls about real life female heroes or amazing successful women?
Okay, well, I absolutely have to be biased and start out with my very own, and I'll hold it up. And it is based on the No Fear acronym I created. So it talks about never let anyone tell you what you cannot do, open your mind to the possibility of your greatness, fight for what you want, expose yourself to new things, act on opportunities and launch yourself and reach forward. And while it's not an autobiography, I open each chapter with a story about myself, kind of when I grew to learn that particular lesson. So that can be an example of how to kind of step them through the process. I also think Malala's book is a very good one because she's a young lady who was a teenager and just totally courageous, stepping outside of her gender role, culturally, what would normally be acceptable, all of that. Hidden Figures, I love that one with Black women who were pioneers, literally human calculators at NASA. And actually recently I was watching a documentary. There were women in general. At the documentary I was watching, interestingly enough, it was talking about the fact that even for white women, that was, interestingly enough, one of the few roles that they could have outside of the usual domestic and teaching. And I thought how funny that is that they thought the women were smart enough to be human calculators at NASA. And that's what they call them. But the strange thing is they weren't paying them the same amount as the men. That's what the whole documentary was about. But even then, those women were in the STEM field, like doing amazing things, all of them. So Hidden Figures, Malala, Bold, Brave, and Courageous by myself. And then I don't know how old of a girl we're talking about. If you're talking about little girls, I can't remember the title right now, but I feel like recently, if you just search on Amazon, I've seen a whole lot of different titles, about the women of the world or great American women. There are even some that are current enough where Kamala Harris is in the book. So you can do a really good search if you're talking about a younger girl as well. And I should add that my book, even though it says a No Fear Success Guide for Teen Girls, it's okay for middle school as well. I'm really talking about her personal journey. I don't discuss sex or dating so that it can be in the safe range. That's something that if I'm in person and it comes up and the facilitators have said it's okay, I will discuss it. But the book is just designed to help her focus on herself and her own path before we worry about all of those things. So I hope that was somewhat helpful of a list there.
That was a great list. I have to say I've read some of the books in the list and they're great suggestions. And we have another great question. It says, how can foster parents, especially fathers, help raise girls and help them feel empowered and confident?
That is a great question. And I think the first thing is the unique position that you're in as a foster father raising a girl is making sure that when you interact and you engage with her, you are letting her know that she is just as capable, just as intelligent, just as skilled as the boys are. And because you are a male, the things that you enjoyed doing as a boy and all of that, she might enjoy the same thing. So make sure to give her that same exposure and some of those same experiences. And also make sure to get her involved in community activities and events. There's a lot of folks have converted very well virtually, and there's still, like, I've seen virtual STEM camps going on, virtual girls conferences, camps are going on, all kinds of things to just keep her in front of confident, empowered women doing great things. And so I think it's really, like we said before, as a foster father, just putting those experiences in front of her, and the books that you buy for her to read, find some good stories and read them with her. Even, I read with my teenagers sometimes, because it's not that they can't read, but I can stop and we can really have a good quality discussion around the topic. So all of those things you can do to really help raise confident girls. And you have a unique role in that because you're one of her major role models. Even before she starts dating, she's watching you, and how you treat her and things like that. So yeah, you have a great opportunity. Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you, Wyjuana. I think those were all the questions we have had from our audience. If anyone wants to add something, feel free to add, or reach out to Wyjuana through her Facebook and website that we have added here in the Zoom chat, and also on Facebook in the comments section, so you can easily find her. Wyjuana, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you to honor this month. And it's an ongoing work that we all have to do. We all have responsibilities. And yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I hope to see lots of you on Friday in the Many Colors of the Teen Girl workshop. If you don't know and you haven't signed up already, go back to the OKSA, Oklahoma Successful Adulthood Program Facebook page. I will be facilitating a live online workshop from 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time called The Many Colors of Teen Girls, Developing Healthy Young Adult Women. And I promise you it'll be fun and engaging. I'm not going to just talk to you for 2 hours. We've got some interactive workshopping that we're going to do, and just trying to help you peel back the different layers, understanding that she is a social being, she's an emotional being, she's spiritual, she's cultural. All of those things make up who she is, and exploring those with you. And the link was just dropped into the chat. So yes, it is free of charge, and I hope to see you there at 1 o'clock on Friday.
Yes, thank you very much.